This winter, Ukraine is not fighting an army. It is fighting the cold. 1 million people lost heat, lost water, lost light. In freezing temperatures, this was not a mistake. This was not collateral damage. This was strategy. When missiles hit power stations in winter, they don't just destroy infrastructure. They attack daily life. They test how long a society can endure darkness, cold, and exhaustion. Wars used to be fought with soldiers and borders. Today, they are fought with electricity, water, and time. President Zelensky called these attacks mockery. But this is more than mockery. It is pressure, calculated, relentless. And here is the uncomfortable truth. This war is no longer only about land. It is about systems and whether modern life can survive without them. If you want to understand where this war is really heading, you must understand this shift. Stay with me. Next, I'll explain why energy, not territory, has become the real battlefield. To understand this war, we need to change the question we are asking. The question is not who controls which city. The real question is who controls the systems that make life possible. Ukraine is a modern country. Like every modern country, it runs on invisible networks. Electricity, water, heating, communication. When those systems work, we barely notice them. When they fail, everything else collapses. Russia understands this. That is why the focus has shifted from frontlines to transformers, from trenches to turbines, from soldiers to substations. By striking energy infrastructure, Moscow is targeting something far more valuable than territory. It is targeting stability, routine, psychological endurance. This strategy is not about winning quickly. It is about wearing a society down slowly, night after night, blackout after blackout. And winter makes this pressure far more powerful. Cold multiplies fear. Darkness magnifies uncertainty. Fatigue erodes resilience. This is not just a military calculation. It is a systems-level assault. And once you see the war this way, a deeper pattern begins to emerge. In the next part, I'll take you back to the origins of this strategy and why winter has become its most effective ally. To understand why this strategy exists, we need to step back. Long before this winter, long before these strikes, energy was already central to this war. Ukraine inherited a vast, interconnected infrastructure system, built for scale, built for stability, built for peace. That system worked well until war turned it into a vulnerability. In modern economies, energy is not just power. It is circulation. It is how hospitals function, how water flows, how cities breathe. Russia learned this lesson over time. Early in the invasion, the focus was territorial. Columns of tanks, rapid advances, decisive victories. That failed. So the strategy evolved. Instead of capturing cities, pressure the systems inside them. Instead of occupying territory, exhaust the population that lives there. Winter completes the mechanism. Cold shortens tolerance. Darkness compresses time. What might be survivable in summer becomes unbearable in frost. This is not new in history, but it is new in scale. A modern society is far more efficient and far more fragile. Once energy becomes the target, every civilian becomes part of the battlefield. And that realization sets the stage for the first true crisis moment of this war. In the next part, we will confront it directly. The first real crisis came quietly, not with a single devastating strike, but with repetition, wave after wave of drones, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles. Again and again, Ukraine's largest private energy provider entered what its CEO described as permanent crisis mode. There was no time to fully repair, no time to rest, only time to respond. Power stations were hit, then hit again, sometimes just as they came back online. This is where the strategy became clear. The goal was not total collapse in one night. It was fatigue, systemic exhaustion. Hospitals switched to back up power. Water facilities followed. Entire regions were told to ration electricity not because demand surged, but because supply could not keep up with destruction. And here is the critical insight. When systems are forced into constant emergency mode, failure becomes a matter of when, not if. This is pressure applied over time, engineered, deliberate. If you're wondering why these strikes feel relentless, this is why. Relentlessness is the tactic, and it raises a deeper question, one we must now confront. What is really happening beneath the surface of this war? In the next part, I'll break down the hidden mechanism that makes this strategy so dangerous. At the heart of this strategy is a simple idea. Modern societies are not defeated all at once. They're worn down. Energy systems are complex. They are interconnected. And they are fragile under constant stress. When a power plant is destroyed, it can be repaired. When a transformer is hit repeatedly, the damage compounds. Spare parts run out. Technicians burn out. Recovery time disappears. This is the hidden mechanism. Russia is not just destroying equipment. It is attacking recovery itself. Every strike forces Ukraine to make trade-offs. Fix this region or that one. Power hospitals or homes. Restore water or heat. These are not technical decisions. They are moral ones. And over time, those decisions erode confidence in systems, in predictability. In the future, this is why President Zelensky insists there is no military sense in these attacks. Because their logic is not tactical, it is psychological. Break the rhythm of daily life. Stretch endurance. Turn survival into a constant calculation. Once energy becomes the choke point, the battlefield expands everywhere. And that brings us to the second crisis, more dangerous, more political, and far harder to contain. In the next part, we'll see how this pressure collides with diplomacy itself. The second crisis does not explode on the battlefield. It unfolds in meeting rooms, in diplomatic corridors, in quiet conversations between allies. As winter deepens, pressure shifts outward. Ukraine needs air defenses. Constantly, urgently. But at the same time, peace talks begin to surface. Proposals circulate. Timelines are discussed. And this creates a dangerous overlap. Russia intensifies strikes just as negotiations appear. Not by accident, by design. The message is simple. Endure this now or compromise later. Energy blackouts become leverage. Cold becomes bargaining power. Civilian suffering becomes part of the negotiation environment. Zelensky warns the West not to slow support, not to confuse talks with stability, not to mistake discussion for security. Because once pressure is applied at the right moment, it reshapes decisions. This is the second crisis. A war fought not just with weapons, but with timing, with weather, with patience. And when diplomacy absorbs this pressure, the consequences extend far beyond Ukraine. In the next part, I'll bring this down to the most important level of all your level, the human cost. Now, let's step away from strategy. Let's talk about you. Imagine waking up in the dark. No heat, no running water, your phone battery fading, outside snow falls. Inside, the cold settles into the walls. You still have to work, still have to care for children, still have to worry about elderly parents. And now you must also calculate electricity. Every hour, every appliance. This is what endurance really looks like. Not heroism on the front line, but quiet decisions made under stress. Do I heat one room or save power for later? Do I charge my phone or keep the lights on? This is why these attacks matter. They are designed to exhaust you emotionally, to turn daily life into a constant test of resilience. Zelensky asks Ukrainians to remain strong. But strength is not infinite. It must be supported. This is the human center of the war. And this is where your attention matters most. If this story moves you, Don't scroll past it. Share it, talk about it, because visibility is a form of protection. And when millions live this reality, the impact does not stop at Ukraine's borders. In the next part, we'll look at how this pressure spreads globally. What happens in Ukraine does not stay in Ukraine. Energy shocks never do. When a country of Ukraine's size is pushed into constant crisis mode, the effects ripple outward. Supply chains tighten, energy markets react, insurance costs rise, political risk spreads. Europe feels this first. Every strike on Ukraine's grid reinforces a simple truth. Energy security is national security. That is why these attacks are watched closely in Berlin, in Paris, in Washington. They signal a model of conflict that can be exported. If civilian infrastructure becomes a primary target, no modern society is immune. Not democracies, not wealthy states, not energy-rich nations. This is why debates over air defense, troop deployments, and security guarantees matter so much. They are not only about Ukraine's survival, they are about setting limits, because if this strategy succeeds once, it will be copied. Cold, darkness, systemic pressure, used not as collateral damage, but as doctrine. And that brings us to the hardest question of all. What happens next? In the final stretch, I'll walk you through 3 possible futures and what they mean for Ukraine, Europe, and the world. From here, the future splits into 3 paths. The first is the hopeful one. Western support holds. Air defenses increase. Energy infrastructure stabilizes enough to survive winter. Negotiations continue, but without coercion. In this scenario, pressure fails. Endurance wins. The second path is murkier. Support continues, but unevenly. Repairs lag behind attacks. Blackouts persist. Talks drag on. Ukraine survives, but at high cost. Fatigue becomes permanent. Stability remains fragile. And then there is the third path, the dangerous one. Support slows, pressure intensifies, cold and darkness become unbearable. In this future, systems fail faster than they can be repaired, not because of one decisive blow, but because endurance runs out. This is the core lesson of modern conflict. Wars are no longer decided only by firepower. They are decided by resilience, by logistics, by whether societies can function under sustained stress. That is why energy has become the battlefield, and why the outcome will shape not just Ukraine's future, but how wars are fought everywhere. All of this leads us to the final insight. In the next and last part, I'll bring it together and explain why this war is a warning to the modern world. This war leaves us with one unavoidable insight. The future of conflict is not only violent, it is systemic. Ukraine shows us what happens when modern life itself becomes the target. Not just soldiers, not just borders, but electricity, water, heat, time. Russia is testing a brutal idea that societies can be broken not by invasion but by exhaustion. So far, Ukraine has resisted. Not because the pressure is light, but because resilience has been supported. That is the lesson the world must absorb. Peace is not simply the absence of fighting. It is the protection of systems that allow people to live normal lives. If those systems fail, diplomacy becomes hollow. Promises weaken. Stability collapses quietly, then all at once. Zelensky believes this war could end in the first half of 2026. That may be true, but how it ends will matter more than when. Because what is being written here is a rule book, one that future conflicts will follow or reject. And that decision is not made only by leaders. It is shaped by attention, by understanding, by whether people grasp what is really at stake. If this analysis helped you see the war more clearly, don't let it stop here. Share it, discuss it, and stay engaged. Because in a world built on systems, awareness is not passive. It is power.